Now, if you feel you need to wear a mask, wear a mask. It's like people put rings in their nose and shave their heads. Do whatever you want to do. Who gives a damn? But to impose it on everyone else, to what? For what reason?
This is where freedom rings.
If you believe in America, if you believe in the Constitution empowers us. It's a new day. America's back. America's back, and America's going to get strong again. We're going to defend America, and we're going to defend our interests.
Liberty's voice, Levin TV.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Levin TV. These masks, are they healthy? Are they safe? I have a serious question I've been asking, really, for a couple of years now, including on radio, but here, too. We have what they claim is climate change, right? Used to call global warming, global cooling, and so forth. And what is the cause, they argue, of these massive environmental movements taking place that are destroying our forests and our coastlines and creating earthquakes and hurricanes and all the rest of it? What is it? Carbon dioxide. Because the truth be told, if the American people were actually educated about the atmosphere, they would know that the biggest element in our atmosphere is condensation. It's water. Well, they can't really control that, but they figure they can control carbon dioxide, which is one of the smallest elements in our atmosphere. As I wrote in Liberty and Tyranny, if you take a stadium with 10,000 fans in it, and if 4 of those fans were carbon dioxide, just for an argument on the parallel, that would be the extent to which carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere. So it's a very, very small amount, but it's absolutely necessary. Without carbon dioxide, you would die, because plants need it to create what? Oxygen. And we need oxygen to do what? Live. So my question is this: if carbon dioxide needs to be reduced, if the Supreme Court in a case called Massachusetts versus the EPA all but claims that carbon dioxide is a pollutant, and scientifically carbon dioxide is not a pollutant and cannot be a pollutant. You inhale oxygen, you exhale carbon dioxide. Plants inhale, if for lack of a better term, carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. It's not a pollutant. It's never been a pollutant. But the Supreme Court did that in order to allow the Environmental Protection Agency to go along with this climate change hoax. I'm not saying the climate doesn't change. Why wouldn't it? I'm just saying there's damn little we can do about it. The question to me, to you, is this. Okay, if we give them their argument, if you're wearing a mask, let's say you're 5 years old or 7 years old, and you're wearing a mask 7 hours a day on your own face, and you're exhaling carbon dioxide, and you're inhaling your own carbon dioxide that you're inhaling. Because remember, the purpose of the mask is to be self-contained, right? It's to keep these molecules and particles and everything else from the exterior coming in. If you're going to stop this virus, you're going to be stopping most everything. So you're going to stop a significant percentage of it, but you're going to inhale a great deal of the carbon dioxide you exhale. And I'm quite serious about this. Does this have neurological impacts? Does it have impacts on your lungs and so forth? You heard it here, not first, because I've been saying this for a while. There's going to be a study one day that shows that these masks were like the idea of the Neanderthal phony doctors, the quacks, that you should wear a mask. It just is counterintuitive, isn't it? That we're going to destroy our economic system, drive up costs, destroy the oil and other fossil-related industries because of carbon dioxide, but we're going to compel you to inhale it. These are politicians making these decisions. These are very stupid, power-hungry people. Just look at Trudeau in Canada as a perfect example of this. And so we have these mask debates, which are really asinine and idiotic. There's absolutely no evidence that children need to wear masks. None. Absolutely no evidence they need to be vaccinated. Again, as I keep saying now, but I want to underscore this. When's the last time you heard Biden pushing vaccines? Seriously, when's the last time you've heard it? It's been weeks, if not a couple of months, right? When's the last time you saw graphs on TV about how the pandemic is killing people? It's been a long time, hasn't it? And it goes beyond them trying to protect Biden now. It's just not that newsworthy. Why? Because of the Omicron variant. They came out about 10 to 12 weeks ago. First in South Africa, as best as we know. And the South Africans said, Omicron really is like a mild flu. It's not killing anybody. Most people don't even know they have it, and if they have it, they're sick for a period of time and they move on. So the Israelis looked at this, and one Israeli expert, who really is an expert and a practicing doctor, he said, Omicron is now going to defeat the mothership, and the mothership being the Delta variant, and the heart of it, the COVID-19 virus. Now, why is that? Because Omicron is going to create a population of billions of people who have the antibody without the deadly side effects. The antibody without the deadly side effects. So Omicron is the answer, fundamentally, to the virus, even though it's a variant on the virus. People get it, they don't die, they're immune. There's a study that came out from Israel last week that further said that natural immunity, and that's what we're talking about in this respect, lasts 27 times longer, they expect, than the vaccines. Now, I'm not opposed to the vaccines, but if you get this virus, you are much better protected than if you get the vaccine. That's a fact. And if you get the Omicron variant, which is pretty much what people are getting now, the overwhelming majority of cases, overwhelming, you're not going to die. You'll get sick for a couple of days like you have a flu, but not even a bad flu necessarily. So you'll get through it. And so the pandemic has run its course. The pandemic has run its course. You don't even hear people talking about it anymore. What you hear people talking about are the mandates that never seem to run their course. Look at Canada. We now are on the border with a totalitarian state. Canada is the definition of a totalitarian state. I don't care if you vote for people to go to Parliament. If it's totalitarian, it's totalitarian. Thomas Jefferson said a long time ago, he talked about the tyranny of the legislature. Any form of government can create a tyranny. You just hope that ours is better at containing it. Because people who get power want more power. It's the nature of human beings. It's a very evil side of human beings. It's the rare person who gives up power. George Washington gave up power. Some others have given up power, but most of them want it, like it, and want more of it. And that's what you see taking place in Canada and, quite frankly, in our own country. People running for the Senate for 6 or 7 terms, what the hell's that all about? Do you think that's what the framers of the Constitution had in mind? You got a guy, Joe Biden, was in the Senate 36 years, a vice president 8 years, president, so-called president, for at least a year or so. Has it improved the country or his ability to manage his jobs? Of course not, because he doesn't have real-world experience. So we have these school boards, particularly in these very Democrat, highly liberal areas, particularly in the suburbs, where we have these school boards that won't let go. They won't let go. And the effects on your little kids are really very severe. And the extent of it's not even known. And beyond what I was talking about, carbon dioxide, the psychological effects, the socializing effects, and so forth, which is one of the reasons parents are rising up. In Montgomery County, Virginia, not Montgomery County, Maryland, but I seem to think all these Montgomery counties are not that great. I come out of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Used to Republican, now it's gone to hell. Why? The Democrats run it, that's why. Montgomery County, Virginia, a parent gets up and starts showing photos of the school board members not wearing masks. And that's about all one school board member can take. Go.
Here's a picture of you right here on Facebook with a crowd of people. That's it. With no mask on. This is my time and I don't interrupt you. Here's another picture with you with a no mask on.
I'm sorry, Ms. Vaught, you are done. If you are going to sit there and disparage a member of our school...
Oh, if you're going to disparage a member of the school board by showing public photos of these people on the internet not wearing masks, I mean, we're going to have to shut you down. We may have to send you to Canada and get you arrested. You never know. Or we may have to call the domestic terrorist hotline over there at the Department of Injustice and wake up Merrillis Garland so he can send a phalanx of FBI agents to pick you up. Go ahead.
Then you can sit down. If you have something effective to say.
I have facts and truth on my side.
I am not going to sit here.
This is
Can we have a police officer, please?
She's calling for a police officer because this citizen, this parent, is showing that this school board member wasn't wearing masks, even though they're mandating them for the children in the workforce and anybody who comes into the schools in Montgomery County, Virginia. And now she's calling a police officer to remove her because she won't sit down, because to show that is disparaging the school board member. You know, what's happened, these HOAs used to be really, to me, the worst of the worst, where you had people with no common sense whatsoever who taste a little bit of power and are trying to tell people how to live. You know, you need to paint your mailbox, you know, stuff like that. This mentality has spread throughout our governing system. And these school boards are at the lowest level. I was a school board member years and years ago. I couldn't tell people who would get behind a microphone, you sit down or I'll call the cops. You sit down or I'll call the cops? We had a Tea Party revolution. This is back in 1979 when I was on the school board. I was also in law school, where thousands of people would show up at the school board meetings and yell at the other 8 members and, of course, cheer me because I was opposed to taxes and these liberals wouldn't stop. We never said we're going to call the police and get you arrested, or wrote a letter to the Justice Department asking them to send in the FBI. The extent to which the federal and local law enforcement is abused and misused is amazing. On the one hand, we're told they're systematically racist. And on the other hand, when they're ordered to turn on the citizenry, they're the greatest people in the world. These politicians are disgusting. Go.
Yes. No, I'm not scared. I don't care. I would like you to either talk about something. You can talk about something that concerns our school board. Is there something about our students you would like to talk about?
No, there's something about you, you idiot, that she's trying to talk about, and you don't like it because of the hypocrisy. Now, I have a little different view. I think the school board members and most liberals and Democrats should be compelled to wear masks, having nothing to do with science, but having to do with our quality of life. I don't like looking at them. It's that simple. Go ahead.
About our students. Can you please ask the squad to leave? Thank you.
Ms. Bob, let's let the rest of us talk.
No. If you would like to finish about students, but if your idea is to stand there.
You can see the deputy sheriff there is very hesitant to do anything. Caught between a rock and a hard place. And this is how the left abuses law enforcement. Go ahead.
I've had to listen to people come and criticize me.
People came here and criticized you last year.
It's not. We're coming for your seats. That's not the issue.
You can have my seat.
We're coming for them. All of them.
Have it.
Except for David.
It's all yours.
Woman wasn't disruptive. She was voicing her opinion. If that school board member had shut her big mouth and had masked instead of showing herself, she would have said what she needed to say, and that would have been that. But she didn't want to be exposed for the hypocrite that she is. But she has been on the Montgomery County, Virginia school board. Let's go, Brandon. We have a little montage, if you will, of cases of people who have been targeted because of the Let's Go Brandon or Trump paraphernalia. And there's one instance you'll see on an airline. So apparently, what we used to call stewardess, now we call them flight attendants. Flight attendants are being told, and flight attendants have a very difficult job. I wouldn't want it. Now, you want a Diet Coke? What do you want? Going up and down the aisle there, and some schmo, is he awake? Does he have his suit? I mean, if you have got to tell the passengers how to use a seatbelt, they shouldn't be on a plane. They should be in a padded cell. All right, that aside. On the other hand, if somebody has a mask that says, "Let's go, Brandon," you don't throw them off the plane. If I had a mask that said 1619, would they throw me off the plane? No. And so what's happening here is the corporatists are imposing their will through their employees on the public. You should be able to wear whatever mask you want as long as there's not foul language on it. So take a look at this TikTok, which of course is a communist Chinese enterprise, from January and February of 2022. Go.
I'm asking for a different mask, please. Yeah, but you can tell me why it's different. Because of the comment that you've written on there. But I'm allowed to actually ask you if you have already put your mask. So I'm going to ask you to put a different mask on, or I'm going to have to ask you to let you know. So is that a violation of my rights? This is an FAA regulation, and I'm asking you to comply.
That's great, but there has to be that difference. This is the time.
Sir, I'm going to ask you to change your mask. Please put the phone down. I do not give you permission to film it. Put the phone down. Okay, I'm going to have you to leave the aircraft, please. I'm going to have you leave the aircraft.
Sorry, I'm just asking.
I'm going to have you leave the aircraft now.
That's why I'm just asking.
No, I do not give you permission to film me. That's from your seat. Do you have any bags in the overhead bin? I do, yeah. If you can get those down, please.
Let's stop here a moment. You know, it's difficult enough to fly these days. It's a real pain in the ass. It just is. Get to the airport 2 hours in advance, wear a mask. I mean, the federal government has imposed on these airports the requirement that everybody wear a mask. All right, you're wearing a mask. If you want to eat something, some of them have gotten a little better. Most of them, it's still the same crap. Then you got to watch CNN on the monitor. Somehow they got that monopolized in the various airports. But it really is a pain. And a lot of the times now, the planes are canceled or they're late or something's going on. You don't get a meal. If you're lucky, you'll get some pretzels and a cup about that size of something to drink. Okay, I understand that they're in hard times. But these are customers. Are people on airplanes treated like customers anymore? This guy wasn't bothering anybody. He seems like a gentleman and seems like a gentleman. And you're not allowed to criticize Biden. You're not allowed to criticize the left. You can shut down the economy if it's in the name of quack science. But if you are truckers trying to protect your own freedom, then all of a sudden you're insurrectionists and domestic terrorists. We see what's going on here, we the American people and the Canadian people. We see what's happening in the last several years. We see who's doing it. Go ahead.
Sir, did you get your bag on? If you could please just get your bag down. I do not give you permission to film me. Please turn your camera off. No.
Turn your camera off. He's not required to turn his camera off. They're not in the air. The hell does she think she is? She's obviously gone well beyond. Now she's going to teach him who's boss, you see. Turn your camera off. There's no requirement to turn his camera off. Even if the cops are there, there's no requirement to turn your cameras off. Did Black Lives Matter turn their cameras off? Go ahead.
The camera on. Okay, you get your bag, please. I'm going to ask you to get your bag.
That's fine. I'll just drop it. So,
Thank you. You can leave the aircraft, please. You can leave the aircraft, please. Thank you.
Wow.
Sorry.
Once again. How you doing? Good, how are you? Sorry. Thank you, sir. You're welcome. Once again, for those passengers who are joining us now, face coverings are federally mandated. Please ensure your face coverings over your nose and mouth at all times. Please still have the boarding.
I know. I was just okay. I'll wear that one.
But look, he's being treated like he's some common criminal. This is disgusting. It is beyond disgusting. Go ahead.
Just let us know. We can rearrange another way of transportation for you to get to Tampa.
I mean, excuse me. I'll wear this, but if she can give me a reason, like, did I have to turn it off? Like, is there a reason? Like, it's offensive.
It can be to some people, so we're not gonna go back and forth. Just go ahead and put the blue one on, okay?
Okay, so my mask is offensive.
That's fine.
I know. I was just asking a question. I'm not being confrontational. It's just.
So we're gonna put the blue one on, right?
Yes. Sure. Wow, this is not America anymore. This is not America anymore.
No, it's not.
I think yours is offensive then. This is NFL?
Right. Choose one if we got
I have it all recorded.
yeah.
You know, it's following her rules too. Oh yeah, of course they make their own rules. It's not America. It's not First Amendment. It's her rule.
He's right. And by the way, notice his T-shirt said "Let's go, Brandon." So apparently it's okay to have it on a T-shirt, but not on a mask. Why? Because these people, look, when you're power hungry, there's no consistency to it. You're just power hungry. Go ahead.
Jump 2024! Yo! Put the hat back on, bro! Put it on! Put it on! Put it on! Put it on! Put the hat on! Put the hat on! Put the hat on! Put it on! Put it on! Put it on! Put the hat on! Put it on! Put it on! Put it on! Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
I don't even know what the hell's going on there. What, are they demanding that somebody put a mask on? Ah, the left. The vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. And now we have Trudeau, the latest and yet very aggressive Marxist in Canada. Some people call him fascist. And when it comes down to it, in terms of Trudeau, it really doesn't matter. They have emergency terrorist laws there, as we do in this country. The fear has always been that they will be used against the citizenry. They don't have a Bill of Rights. They don't have a Constitution. You know, those men who created our Constitution, we call them the framers, whose monuments have been desecrated, that have been pulled down, who have been destroyed in the minds of young Americans. They're the ones that built those protections in the Constitution to protect you. The extent to which they're complied with, as Benjamin Franklin said, is really up to the people at the time. The people determine how strong their founding documents are and whether or not they're going to have the resolve to defend them and promote them. And that's a significant question, because I've argued we live in many ways in a post-constitutional country. That said, you're not allowed to have a disagreement of opinion, because if you do, you're obviously a Nazi, or you're a white supremacist, or whatever it is. Again, the Marxist left, whether the American Marxists or the Canadian Marxists, this is how they roll. This is what they do. No engagement, no debate, nothing. There's no reason for a vaccine mandate anymore. They're even lifting them in our most regressive cities. You're seeing it happen in, as an example, in Washington, D.C. You're seeing it happen in the state of New Jersey, because the pandemic has run its course. It's run its course. Look, I'm in Florida now. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. I never wear a mask in Florida. I'll ask our man here, do you wear a mask in Florida, Ryan? No. I don't wear a, you're free here. You don't wear a mask. Are the occasions of the pandemic higher? No, because it's pretty much run its course. Now, if you feel you need to wear a mask, wear a mask. It's like people put rings in their nose and shave their heads. Do whatever you want to do. Who gives a damn? But to impose it on everyone else, to what? For what reason? And same with the vaccines. At this point, they're not really necessary. This is Mark's opinion. As somebody who was vaccinated, who supported the vaccine regime, I oppose the mandates. You can support vaccines and oppose tyranny, which has always been my position. But now, if I had to start over, this thing's run its course, no, I wouldn't. Because probably at worst, you'll get this Omicron variant that I just spoke about, after which you'll be fine, and you'll have a better immune system to fight this virus than if you were vaccinated and never got it. This is the truth. This is the science. So there they are in Parliament. Boy, I used to love watching the British Parliament. When Thatcher was the Prime Minister, I would stay up. I would watch that. That would be on midnight, Wednesday or Thursday night. You know, they used to have Parliament Tuesdays and Thursdays. They moved it to Wednesday and extended the time because the Prime Minister actually needed to work. And they would run it on C-SPAN on the weekends, and sometimes, as if I recall, late at night during the week. But regardless, I was hooked on her. She was unbelievable, Thatcher. Now you have these people who can barely speak. Anyway, they're having one of these sessions in Parliament in Canada. And this young lady stands up to speak. She's a member of the Conservative Party. She represents a suburb in outside of Ontario. Her name is Melissa Lantsman, Lantsman, and she serves on a variety of committees and so forth. She was born in 1984 to a Russian Jewish family and speaks 3 languages, so she's no idiot. But let's take a look at what happened here. Go.
Positive, optimistic, hopeful vision for public life isn't a naive dream. It could be a powerful force for change. If Canadians are to trust their government needs to trust Canadians. Those are the words of the Prime Minister in 2015. These people, very often misogynistic, racist, women haters, science deniers, the fringe. Same Prime Minister 6 years later as he fans the flames of an unjustified national emergency. So, Mr. Speaker, when did the Prime Minister lose his way? When did it happen?
You're right, Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Conservative Party members can stand with people who wave swastikas. They can stand with people who...
So this is the typical tactic. They did this with the Tea Party. They do this with Trump supporters. There's some knucklehead with a Confederacy flag or a Nazi flag, swastika or whatever. And then they paint the whole movement. People who break into the Capitol building. So now everybody's an insurrectionist if you support Trump, including the former president of the United States. You can get into this, but it is the typical tactic of the Marxist left. To smear everybody, to project upon them. They don't want to debate the working men and women of Canada. They don't want to actually debate the truck drivers. They don't want to get into that any more than they wanted to debate the nurses who they fired in this country and the cops who they fired, on and on and on. People we depended on when we didn't have vaccines and therapeutics all through the pandemic. Who did we depend on? Truckers, cops, nurses, doctors, grocery store workers, and a handful of others. I know they didn't come out of Ivy League schools. I know they didn't graduate summa or magna cum laude from their colleges or universities, if he even went, but they put food on the table of the elitists. I didn't say elite because they're not elite, of the self-aggrandizing, self-anointed elitists who, if they had to fend for themselves, they'd starve to death. Go ahead.
The Confederate flag. We will choose to stand with Canadians who deserve to be able to get to their jobs, who be able to get their lives back.
You look at a guy like this, it's like Newsom in California. What do they do? They elect people with good hair? Is that pretty much it? Where's Alice Cooper when you need him? Go ahead.
These illegal protests need to stop, and they will, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I am a strong Jewish woman and a member of this House and a descendant of Holocaust survivors, and I have never it's never been singled out, and I have never been made to feel less, except for today when the Prime Minister accused me of standing with swastikas. I think he owes me an apology. I'd like an apology, and I think he owes an apology to all members of this House.
He was asked 3 times, and he refused to apologize once. This is a man who wore blackface less than a decade ago. This is a man who praised the genocidal regime in communist China, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, because they get things done, much like Thomas Friedman, who's won like 4 Pulitzer Prizes writing for the New York Times, who married into enormous wealth and lives in a mansion in Maryland and so forth. These are the kinds of people who want to rule over you. When you look at what's going on in Canada to the truckers, do you know that a woman who's led the organization of this movement in Canada was arrested? They tracked her down and they arrested her. What should she do? She's promoting lawlessness. They arrested her, ladies and gentlemen. Go on the internet, you'll see a picture of this. Go to Right Scoop or any other site, Blaze in particular, and you will see this. Perfectly fine woman. She organized a peaceful protest and they arrested her. This government in Canada is exposing the names and locations of individuals who've contributed to these Fund Me efforts to support the truckers. One woman with a restaurant has had her life threatened and has had her business effectively shuttered. The government's participating in this. People are being arrested for providing gasoline to the truckers. They're going to take your children away, it was announced, if you bring your children to these protests. Truckers who are arrested and removed from their rigs are being told if you have a dog, as a lot of them do, you will lose your dog permanently. They're going to put the dogs up for adoption. They're tracking down the insurance companies that provide insurance to these truckers to cut them off. They're telling the banks to report on the individuals whose names they give them so they can track if any donations have been given in support of this movement. This is the Vladimir Putin of Canada, this guy Trudeau. I don't think Vladimir Putin does this to his own people. This is kind of Xi territory with the social credit numbers and so forth. And people say it's going to spread to the United States. What are you talking about? It has spread from the United States to Canada. Don't you remember that they were shuttering churches and synagogues for opening 2 years ago, but leaving abortion clinics open? Don't you remember that? Don't you remember they were shutting down gun shops? Well, again, protecting abortion clinics. Don't you remember they were shutting down little mom and pop retail stores while Walmart was open and Costco was open and all the rest of them were open? We can go right down the list. Now, one of the smart things that Biden did, I know it's a very peculiar sentence to use the word smart and Biden in the same sense, but I am, is he gave a waiver to the truckers when it came to mandate vaccinations, the mandating of vaccinations. Not so to the totalitarian regime up north. Why is he even pushing vaccinations now? Which is why I talked about Omicron. Nobody's doing that who has any common sense anymore, any ability to have to read what's going on, some level of literacy. Nobody's doing that anymore. And yet they're imposing the will on the truckers. These truckers are great patriots. They were patriots during the course of the pandemic, and they are patriots right now. These are great patriots. And the best this little jerk can do up in Canada is to throw out the swastika, the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag. What does the Confederacy have to do with Canada? Am I missing something? It's the Confederacy have to do with Canada. I don't know. You learn something every day when you deal with the left. It's very dangerous. Remember the Build Back Better plan, or whatever they called it, that they wanted to push through, trillions of dollars, massive law. You wouldn't really know what's in it until they pass it. And by the way, that's tyranny too. But you remember that little provision somebody found, $600? You spend $600 or receive $600 on each occasion, it's reported to the Internal Revenue Service. Now we know why. Canada. They wanted to have the power to track your bank accounts or your cryptocurrency or whatever your financial transactions are. They wanted to have the power to have the data. It really had nothing to do with taxing. It had everything to do with tracking you, what you do with your life, who you pay, who pays you, to keep track of you. That's why they wanted the Internal Revenue Service to have that information. That is how notorious this is. That's how unconscionable and sleazy this is through the back door. And footnote, remember all these mandates that Biden put in place without any legislative basis whatsoever, using some OSHA statute that had nothing to do with it? Remember the Supreme Court said no? Remember the lower courts, all but for the worst of the worst, said no? But Biden had done it anyway. What power does the central government have to tell little kids to wear masks? Just real fast, a constitutional lesson. At no time in American history has any president ordered people to take a vaccine or to wear masks. Why? First of all, the constitutional reason. Federal government doesn't have this power. It's left to the states. It's called the police powers. Plenary police powers belong to the states under the 10th Amendment. There's not a single Supreme Court case, even when we've had pandemics in the past, like the Spanish flu and so forth, not one, that supports such a federal edict. Number two, The president acted without legislative authority. He just decided that certain people in certain jobs or certain companies with over 100 employees were going to compel their people to get vaccinated. This is a great intrusion into the liberty of the individual, a great intrusion. The same people who call it a choice when you kill a baby in the womb are compelling you to take a vaccination shot. You know, it's one thing if you tell little kids you can't go to school if you don't do X, Y, Z based on real science over a period of time, polio and things of that sort, with almost no side effects. It's quite another when you do this. So states have authority to do this. The federal government does not. States have authority. The federal government does not. I wrote in this book, American Marxism, in the first chapter, that we're not just on the precipice, we're on the precipice falling into the abyss. And I think that's why this movement is developed. That's why there's 1.3 million copies of this book in the hands of red-blooded patriots like you. That's why there's a parents' movement against what's going on in the schools, a truckers' movement against what's going on to these wonderful, brave patriots. And this movement needs to grow if we're going to get our country back. And any free country, including Canada, will get their country back. See you next time on Levin TV.